Have you ever wondered how one court decision in a single state could end up influencing gun laws across the entire country? Well, that's exactly why legal experts, gun owners, lawmakers, and constitutional scholars are paying close attention right now. A major firearms licensing battle connected to Massachusetts has reignited a nationwide debate about gun permits, constitutional rights, state authority, and the future of the Second Amendment. And here's what makes this story even more important. Whenever courts issue unanimous rulings, or when a legal issue begins moving toward Supreme Court review, it sends a powerful signal that the legal landscape may be shifting. Today, we're counting down the 10 biggest reasons this Massachusetts gun permit fight could impact all 50 states and potentially reshape future gun law battles across America. Make sure you stay until number 1, because that's where we'll reveal why many legal observers believe this issue could become one of the most influential Second Amendment battles of the decade. Let's begin. Massachusetts has long maintained some of the strictest firearm licensing laws in the United States. For years, supporters argued these laws promoted public safety, while critics claimed they created unnecessary barriers for law-abiding citizens. What began as a dispute involving licensing requirements quickly evolved into a constitutional debate reaching far beyond state borders. That's because gun rights cases rarely stay local for long. When constitutional rights are involved, every state pays attention. A ruling in Massachusetts can become the foundation for future arguments in Texas, Florida, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and every other state. Think about it for a moment. How often does a local issue become something the entire nation starts discussing? That's exactly what happened here, and that national attention leads directly to our next reason. Ever since the Supreme Court's landmark Bruen decision in 2022, courts across America have been re-evaluating firearm regulations. Before Bruen, many states had broader discretion when deciding who could receive certain carry permits. After Bruen, courts began asking a different question. Does a particular firearm restriction fit within America's historical tradition of firearm regulation? That shift completely changed the legal framework. Suddenly, states had to justify regulations using historical evidence rather than simply arguing that a law might improve public safety. This new legal standard has triggered challenges nationwide. The Massachusetts permit controversy became another important test of how courts apply those constitutional principles in the real world. And the implications continue to grow. Most people focus on the Second Amendment, but there's another constitutional issue receiving increasing attention: due process. In simple terms, due process means the government must follow fair procedures before restricting someone's rights. Imagine applying for a permit. You complete the paperwork, you pass background checks, you pay the fees. Then suddenly you're denied without a clear explanation. Most Americans would consider that unfair. That's why courts are increasingly examining whether licensing systems provide adequate transparency, appeals processes, and objective standards. The Massachusetts debate shines a spotlight on this issue. Regardless of where someone stands politically, most people agree that government decisions should follow consistent and understandable rules. And that principle doesn't just apply to firearms, it applies to every constitutional right. And that's why this issue matters far beyond gun ownership. One of the most overlooked consequences involves administrative procedures. Many people assume court rulings only affect criminal cases. In reality, they often force government agencies to rewrite policies, retrain staff, update forms, and revise decision-making procedures. If courts determine that certain licensing standards are too vague, states may need to create more objective criteria. If appeal procedures are considered insufficient, agencies may need to establish new review processes. If timelines are unreasonable, lawmakers may need to impose stricter deadlines. For everyday citizens, that could mean clearer rules and greater predictability. Nobody likes uncertainty when dealing with government applications. Whether someone supports stricter gun laws or broader gun rights, clarity benefits everyone. And clarity becomes even more important when constitutional rights are involved. Here's where things become especially interesting. One major issue involves individuals traveling between states. Imagine someone legally owns a firearm in one state, They possess a valid permit, they follow all local laws, then may cross into another state with completely different licensing requirements. What happens? That question has become one of the most contested issues in modern gun law. Supporters of stricter regulations argue states should control firearm policies within their borders. Opponents argue constitutional rights shouldn't disappear simply because someone crosses a state line. This tension creates difficult legal questions. The Massachusetts dispute highlights exactly how complicated interstate firearm regulations can become. And because Americans travel constantly, millions of people are potentially affected by how courts answer these questions. One reason this case matters so much is because legislators are paying attention. State lawmakers often study court decisions before drafting new legislation. Why? Because nobody wants to pass a law that gets struck down a few months later. When courts clarify constitutional boundaries, lawmakers adjust accordingly. Some states may strengthen existing regulations. Others may loosen restrictions. Still others may redesign permit systems entirely. That's why court decisions frequently influence legislation years after the ruling itself. The effects spread gradually. One policy change leads to another, then another. Eventually, an entire legal landscape begins to shift. And that's exactly what observers are watching for now. Legal battles rarely exist in isolation. Attorneys constantly study previous cases, searching for arguments that might help future clients. Think of it like a road map. Every major ruling creates new pathways for future litigation. If a court upholds a particular licensing standard, other states may adopt similar approaches. If a court rejects certain practices, lawyers elsewhere may challenge comparable laws. This ripple effect can continue for years, sometimes decades. That's why even seemingly narrow cases can have enormous long-term consequences. The Massachusetts permit dispute has already attracted attention from legal organizations nationwide because many see it as a preview of future constitutional battles. And the next reason may be even more significant. One major theme emerging from recent gun cases is increased judicial oversight. Courts are playing a larger role in evaluating firearm regulations than they did in previous decades. Why does that matter? Because judges increasingly serve as referees between individual rights and government authority. Every time a licensing dispute reaches a courtroom, judges must determine whether regulations remain consistent with constitutional protections. And that responsibility carries enormous weight. Court decisions don't just affect the individuals involved, they influence future policies, future cases, and future interpretations of constitutional rights. As a result, judicial oversight has become one of the defining features of modern firearm law. And many experts believe that trend is only beginning. Regardless of political beliefs, most Americans support accountability. Government agencies should explain decisions. Rules should be understandable. Standards should be applied consistently, and those principles form the foundation of public trust. The Massachusetts licensing debate highlights the importance of accountability in constitutional governance. When citizens understand how decisions are made, confidence increases. When standards appear arbitrary, trust erodes. That's why courts frequently emphasize objective criteria and transparent procedures. The broader lesson extends beyond firearms. Whether discussing permits, licenses, property rights, or free speech, accountability remains essential to preserving constitutional protections. And that brings us to the most important reason of all. Here it is. The biggest reason legal experts are paying attention: the long-term impact. The Massachusetts permit controversy is about far more than one state. It's about defining how constitutional rights interact with government regulation in the years ahead. Future courts may cite these legal arguments. Future lawmakers may draft legislation based on these principles. Future lawsuits may rely on precedents established during these battles. That's why observers across all 50 states are watching carefully. The ultimate outcome could influence permit systems, licensing procedures, interstate reciprocity debates, due process protections, and Second Amendment litigation for years to come. history shows that some legal disputes fade quickly. Others become turning points. Many experts believe this issue has the potential to become one of those turning points. Only time will reveal its full impact. But one thing is certain, the conversation is far from over, so there you have it. The 10 biggest reasons why this Massachusetts gun permit battle is drawing national attention. From due process concerns and interstate travel issues to legislative changes and future constitutional challenges, the potential consequences reach far beyond a single state's borders. Whether you're a gun owner, a legal enthusiast, a policymaker, or simply someone interested in constitutional rights, this story demonstrates how one legal dispute can influence an entire nation. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these 10 reasons do you think will have the biggest impact on America's future gun laws? Do you believe states should have broad authority to regulate permits, or should there be more nationwide consistency? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates on Supreme Court decisions, constitutional rights, and major legal developments shaping America. And while you're here, check out our other videos covering the biggest court cases affecting everyday Americans. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. As we wrap up today's discussion, one thing should be absolutely clear. The debate surrounding Massachusetts gun permit laws is about much more than a single state, a single court case, or even a single legal question. What we're witnessing is part of a much larger national conversation about constitutional rights, government authority, public safety, and the future of firearm regulation in America. Throughout this video, we've explored 10 major reasons why legal experts, lawmakers, gun owners, and constitutional scholars are paying such close attention to these developments. From due process concerns and permit procedures to judicial oversight and interstate firearm regulations, every aspect of this debate has the potential to influence how states approach gun laws in the years ahead. What makes this situation especially significant is that the legal principles being discussed today may eventually shape future court decisions across the country. History has repeatedly shown that important constitutional cases often begin as local disputes before growing into landmark legal battles with nationwide consequences. Many of the rights Americans enjoy today were clarified through years of litigation, court rulings, and constitutional challenges. That's why observers across all 50 states continue to watch these cases so closely. For gun owners, these developments raise important questions about licensing standards, permit requirements, and how constitutional protections are interpreted by courts. For lawmakers, they present challenges in crafting legislation that balances public safety concerns with constitutional rights. And for everyday citizens, even those who don't own firearms, these cases offer valuable insight into how constitutional principles operate in modern America. One of the most important lessons from this entire discussion is that constitutional rights and government regulations are constantly being examined, debated, and interpreted. Courts play a critical role in that process. Their decisions help establish boundaries, define legal standards, and ensure that laws remain consistent with constitutional protections. Whether someone strongly supports stricter gun regulations or believes in expanding firearm rights, understanding how these legal processes work is essential for every informed citizen. Another key takeaway is that legal change rarely happens overnight. Major court decisions often create ripple effects that continue for years or even decades. Legislatures may revise laws, government agencies may update procedures. Attorneys may use new legal arguments in future cases, and courts may rely on previous rulings when deciding similar disputes. In other words, the full impact of today's legal battles may not be fully understood for many years to come. As this conversation continues to evolve, staying informed will be more important than ever. Constitutional law affects every American, regardless of political affiliation or personal views on firearms. The more informed citizens are, the better equipped they become to participate in meaningful discussions about rights, responsibilities, and the future direction of public policy. Now, we'd love to hear your perspective. Do you think states should have broad authority to establish their own firearm permitting systems, or do you believe there should be more uniform standards across the country? Which of the 10 reasons we discussed today do you believe will have the greatest impact on America's legal future? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. If you found this analysis informative and valuable, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage of Supreme Court decisions, constitutional rights, major legal developments, and the stories shaping the future of America. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We truly appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep following the issues that matter most. Before we conclude, it's worth taking a moment to understand why so many legal experts believe the issues raised by this Massachusetts gun permit controversy could continue shaping national debates for years to come. While headlines often focus on dramatic court decisions and political reactions, the deeper story is really about how America interprets constitutional rights in a rapidly changing society. At its core, this debate touches on a question that has existed since the founding of the United States. How should government balance individual freedoms with public safety concerns? Every generation has faced its own version of that question. In today's America, firearm regulations have become one of the most visible examples of that ongoing constitutional discussion. That's why cases involving gun permits, licensing systems, and Second Amendment rights attract so much national attention. They force courts, lawmakers, and citizens alike to confront difficult questions that don't always have simple answers. What makes the situation particularly important is that its impact extends beyond those who own firearms. The legal principles involved, fair treatment, due process, transparency, equal application of laws, and constitutional accountability, affect every American. Regardless of where someone stands politically, most people agree that government decisions should be based on clear rules rather than subjective opinions. Courts often play a critical role in ensuring that those principles remain protected. Another reason this debate matters is because the legal landscape surrounding firearms continues to evolve. Over the last several years, court decisions have changed how judges evaluate gun regulations. Previous legal standards that guided courts for decades are being reconsidered, and new constitutional tests are emerging. As a result, states across the country are reviewing existing laws. Lawmakers are reconsidering future legislation, and legal organizations are preparing for additional challenges that may eventually reach higher courts. For many Americans, these developments serve as a reminder that constitutional rights are not static. They are continually interpreted through court decisions, legal arguments, and public debate. Each significant case contributes another piece to a much larger legal framework that influences future generations. That's why even cases that appear limited to one state can ultimately affect policies nationwide. Looking ahead, it is likely that similar legal disputes will continue appearing across the country. Questions involving permit requirements, licensing procedures, reciprocity agreements, administrative standards, and constitutional protections are unlikely to disappear anytime soon. In fact, many experts believe the coming years could bring even more legal challenges as courts continue defining the boundaries of firearm regulation under modern constitutional standards. For viewers watching today, the most important takeaway may simply be the value of staying informed. Regardless of your personal views on gun policy, understanding how courts make decisions and how constitutional rights are interpreted helps create a more informed and engaged public. Knowledge allows citizens to participate thoughtfully in discussions that affect their communities, states, and country. As America continues navigating these complex issues, one thing remains certain: the conversation surrounding gun rights, government authority, and constitutional protections is far from over. The decisions being debated today may influence legal arguments, legislative proposals, and court rulings for many years to come. Whether these developments ultimately lead to major nationwide changes or more gradual legal evolution, their significance cannot be ignored. And that's what makes this story so important. It isn't just about Massachusetts, it isn't just about permits, and it isn't just about one court battle. It's about the ongoing effort to define the relationship between constitutional rights and government power in modern America, an issue that affects every citizen, every state, and potentially the future direction of the nation itself. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe these legal developments will lead to major changes across the country, or do you think states will continue maintaining very different approaches to firearm regulation? Share your perspective in the comments below and join the discussion. If you found today's analysis helpful, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage of Supreme Court cases and constitutional rights, major legal developments, and the stories shaping America's future. Thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.